Well, I'd like to end our conversation today by looking at one of the philosophical pillars of Great Hearts. And at Great Hearts, we agree with Plato, and we say that the end, the telos of education is to be good, morally and intellectually good. So I'm wondering, in light of the conversation we've had today, how do conversations like this, talking about sensitive topics in our history, help us become good? How do these conversations help us become better citizens and more loving neighbors?
Okay.
Yeah, let's keep going.
We both want to do this question. We both want to jump in. This is why we do the work that we do. You know, we feel we met at a time and at an institution where these were the questions. Our campus needs work. Our students don't feel welcome. We, as a society, our students, we met at the University of Missouri. Our students were, the University of Missouri's just 2 hours out of Ferguson, and the Mike Brown situation happened, that murder happened there. And on campus, students were still being called the N-word and so on. Adam and I met at that point, and we could have continued doing our work in our silos. At the time, I think I was chair of the Department of Black Studies. I had lots of things that I could keep busy with. And Adam was associate director of a major institute at Mizzou. And so we could have just kept going in our different tributaries. And so I think we met over lunch and we started talking and we said, let's sit down and figure out a class that we could both teach, and we'll invite others to teach so that we can help our institution heal. And that's where Race and the American Story was born. We were committed to the notion that knowledge can take us to the promised land. You know, that deep knowledge that students participate in, not that we lecture and we leave, but that we allow our students to see these primary documents that frame the way race has been talked about and defined in American history, that our students would themselves find their way to new revelations and new ways of thinking about their dorm, that the folks on their dorm, the floors of their dorms, they would find a different reaction to their classmates who are doing terrible things. You know, they would be able to step up and say, hey, that's actually not who we are, and that's not what our values are. So this is good work. You know, this is, John Lewis says, it's good trouble, you know. It's trouble because it's hard work. You know, like, why are we even troubling the waters like that? But it's important. We need to get in there and wade in it and bring others along with us. So it's good.
Yeah, it's hard to add to that. I think that was really well said, that the Race and the American Story Project we started it to do good. That was the goal, I think, right? That it was certainly to educate, to further knowledge, but for the sake of doing good and bringing about good for our community. So I think that's absolutely right. I think that in education today, and in K-12 education, particularly also higher education, I think that there's too much fear of doing something wrong or doing the wrong thing or doing something bad, or and not enough positive energy of doing good, right? Of doing the right thing and doing something good. And I think that would be helpful to remind ourselves of the goal of education being to bring about the good for ourselves and for our neighbors and for our community as a positive goal. And that when we teach about sensitive topics, difficult issues, history of race in America, that we should embrace that. We shouldn't shy away from it. We should embrace it as a way of doing good for our community. Teaching and educating about these topics, we are bringing about the good for our communities. And so I think that's important as an attitude, certainly, and I think it's great to think of education generally that way, as being directed not only to knowledge, but also then to the good, to being moved to act on the basis of your knowledge.
Any last little pieces of advice for our teachers?
Get in there, let's go. It's time. I think it's time, and I think if we're thinking of liberal education, if we're thinking of history and literature and art, more than any other field in the academy, these are the fields that will take us further. These are the fields that allow us to really rethink our journey, and this is important work. I know it doesn't often feel that way. It often feels that the focus is on STEM education. That's what the society seems to privilege. But none of those fields, whether it's science, technology, engineering, or math, none of them have had any great strides without a humanist lens on the questions. What are the questions that allow us to think about good health care and pharmaceutical questions and products and so on? Are they fairly thought through for all of us? In terms of technology, are we thinking about the different kinds of people that you need to frame and light up, in the way we use our technology, our algorithms? All of that have to start with humanist questions.
Yeah, I'd agree that just to say to teachers that your work is extremely important, and that we live in a society that unfortunately doesn't appropriately and accurately value the importance of the work that people do, and our economic system doesn't assign wages and salaries and prestige in proportion to the importance of the work, because certainly the work that teachers do, as in the case of other jobs and professions and walks of life as well, is much more important than it is valued by the society, and it deserves all the gratitude and support that we can give it. So that, and then also just to have courage and not be afraid, and embrace the education of your students in every aspect, and realize the importance and the sacredness really of the classroom space and the wonderful service that you're doing for our country.
Maybe we should all get little flowers, the white flower that Billie Holiday wore, as a reminder that we need to get in there and do it, but gently.